listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast. Well, hello. It's episode number 18. We're getting closer to episode number 20. Phil's on his port. I can't even see that on the screen. What is that? Taylor's port?
I can hear it.
It sounds great though, doesn't it?
It does. I said before we came on air, we do look like some sort of dodgy midnight pirate radio station here, don't we? If we need to take a picture or a screenshot of this and put it online. It's
not actually Taylor's, it's Fletcher's.
Oh, Fletcher's. You're a traitor.
So, guess which one I went to? Aldi.
Yeah. Who said port has to cost more than milk, eh?
It's a really nice one. Is this one actually? Yeah, it's a fine ruby port from Aldi. I don't like much in Aldi really, but I do like the dishwasher tablets, and I like the Fletcher's port.
Nice. So episode 17 is that what I said, or 18? 18.
I was just
episode
getting
18?
ready to talk about my gin. Is that not what we're here for? Because I'm drinking Aldi's Finton gin as well. So just want another plug for Aldi there. It's fantastic.
Do it. Go for
pink
it.
Gin.
Go
It's
for it. We should create a jingle for the plugs.
Pink gin, Lee. Oh dear. Do you know that's a summer drink? That's not a winter drink. I usually drink pink gin in summer.
Like I said last time, the warm weather is almost here. The sun's out, at least in Weymouth. So it's time for gin and Mexican beers and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we are looking more and more like a midnight pirate radio station, particularly as our lockdown hair gets out of control. Don't know about you guys, but
you mean as in yeah. I washed mine today, and the bloody bird's nest fell out of it.
There's a reason I'm wearing a hat. I'll just say that.
I've taken the clippers to my own hair, so I used I've got big headphones, these big cans.
Is that why you framed your webcam so that it's just conveniently chopped the top of your head?
All we can see is it looks like what nose there.
Yeah.
He's got a massive windshield in front of it. All we can see is a nose and a pair of glasses. That's it.
Go on, Chris, duck down for us. Let us see your handiwork. Go on.
Oh, God, that's hysterical. Go back up again. Back up. That's it.
So the trick is to get a look like this. You need a bowl.
You try a colander instead, and then like we could pull your hair through and shave them bits off.
Oh, that's a good idea. At least you can get accurate measurements that way. But
well,
yeah. So today's episode, moving on from previous episodes, we've had some really good responses. Actually, I've had some more messages saying, just from people saying they're really enjoying the episodes. So that's a good sign. It's going well. And in the previous episodes, we have been talking about relic guitars, vintage guitars. So moving on from that, I thought we could kind of just branch into pre-owned versus new, and kind of just our preferences on that. And I know we're cautious of time and everything, so I've tried to keep it into three categories. One being budget, the second being what the guitar is for, and the third one is my favorite. It's just character and story. And stories. So
okay,
it's quite a vast subject, pre-owned versus new.
Well, Lee would be good at this one. Lee will just go, pre-owned is cheaper, get that. Thank you, good night.
Well, you have a point though. That is actually one of the major points here, is because obviously the most expensive way to purchase a guitar is generally brand new, but on the flip side of that, you can get really good deals through music shops nowadays. You can make purchases through like loans, what are they? The finance deals. Yeah. Finance deals. And generally the guitars, like obviously they're brand new. There's no wear and tear if that's the sort of look that you want to go for. And obviously you get the warranties as well with new guitars. But when you go new, you do get. I would say in the past you would get a lot of bang for buck, but the second-hand market is definitely creeping up nowadays. And often as well you can pick up guitars that will retain or increase in value. But yeah, like I said, second-hand market is definitely going up in price, and I was just going to talk about some of the guitars I've got, and maybe we can just reference some stories, or some of your favorite guitars, whether they were purchased brand new or pre-owned.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
definitely.
Yeah. I've had best of both worlds, so yeah.
I tell you what,
I can
none
give
of
you
my
a 5-minute
guitar
monologue.
Yeah, none of my guitars, except for the one I'm holding, is I've always bought pre-owned. And actually, some of the pre-owned guitars I have actually bought from music shops. Like my PRS was from Absolute Music. You sold that to me, Lee, and that was in that was actually in mint condition. But it was, a lot cheaper than the RRP price on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
So Chris, you see, you that's the only new guitar you've ever bought. Why is that? Is that a financial thing, or is it just it was the right guitar on the day when you found it, or what?
As a bit of everything, but as I mentioned, like the second-hand market is creeping up, and obviously for this show I needed a Les Paul. The only Les Paul I've ever had is which actually belonged to my dad. That was an '82 model, but this is my first Les Paul, and I was looking second-hand. I wanted to get like a 50s-esque kind of model, with the aesthetics and everything. And it had to be either black or gold. That was my thing. I didn't want to burst because my Strat and my telly have got like a sunburst on them, so I wanted something a little different. And the market, man, most of them were fetching around, or people are asking for around 1,800 second hand for the one, for one in good condition with a good case and everything like that. And this 50s Gold Top I got here is a 2019 model. I bought this from Peach Guitars. And that was £2,000, £1 under £2,000, 1999. Wow. And I just thought, well, an extra 200 quid, I get it brand new. This guitar gets I can be there at the start of this journey. Any knocks or dents or anything I'm making, it will be mine, and I get a warranty with it and everything. So, the Gibson market, I don't know about you guys, but I think they seem to really hold their value.
Gibsons do for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I know how much, because I know you got rid of yours recently, Phil. You traded that for another one. But if you were to sell yours second-hand, you probably would have still got quite a lot of money for that, I would have thought.
Yeah, I'd have got a lot more than what I paid for it. Yeah, definitely. It was a traditional Les Paul traditional, 2012 model, and I probably the guy that I got this new Les Paul from. Well, new. Oh, it's actually older. It's a 2008. Is this one? But he had it up at 1,600, and I would probably say that the traditional was probably go for about 14 because it was a good one. It hadn't been beat up or anything like that, so it was a good one. So I guess I did a little bit better out of the deal. But then again, it's personal, isn't it? He feels he's got a much better guitar because the one that I've got didn't suit him, but this one that he had really suits me.
And that's one of my points as well. Is going pre-owned or new is you have to ask yourself what the guitar is for. And if you're using it on long tours and stuff, the weight. Again, I need to get used to this guitar. It's probably going to be a bit of a shock for me, but
it will when you play mine. I can believe it. I still can't believe this Les Paul's lighter than a Strat. And I know a lot of people go, "Oh, it's not traditional. If it's got away, it's a bit heavy, and all this time." I think that's nonsense. This is a great sounding Les Paul. It's really, in fact, I have to say, is probably one of my favourite guitars that I own now. And it normally takes a fair few months for that to happen. But I've just bonded with this in a week. I've bonded with it, and I can't put it down.
I feel really left out here. You two sat with your Les Pauls, and me
get your bass, Lee.
me with my notebook. To be honest, and a glass of gin. I want one. I want to be in the club. I've said to you guys this week,
it's quite an exclusive club, Lee. I
want the black one. You've got the gold, Chris. Phil, you've got the burst. I think I just want the black.
The black would be lovely, and this applies to you, Lee, as well, because obviously you're going to be in the market for a Les Paul, any time from now. So, do you go pre-owned or do you go new? Because looking at the pre-owned prices of them, they're so expensive. And would you prefer to get one that's, in mint condition, or don't you mind? Because the thing is, they are all a bit hit and miss. Unlike PRS, Gibson are a little less inconsistent with their productions, and
a little less consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a few reasons why you would go one way or the other. And I think it normally comes down to, firstly, when looking at the current new output, is that a guitar that you would wish to buy? Because obviously Gibson, for instance, they changed their models pretty much year to year. And there's going to be certain years that you're just going to look at what they offer and go, nah, not for me. So for you, Chris, you might have been in the market for a Les Paul for a few years, but you waited until the time was right. You took a look at that 2019 spec and you were like, yeah, I like that. But who's to say that next year's standard you might not be a fan of? So you almost might have your hand forced and you have to turn to the second-hand market. Or there might be that, we remember like Phil's, for instance. Phil, yours as a 2008, it's got quite an interesting spec, particularly the chambering on the body. So that was a reason that you had to look for a 2008. So your hand was forced. You couldn't walk out and buy a brand new one because they weren't offering that spec, asymmetrical neck. So I think that's kind of like a big, other than just the price saving, and we all know that you're going to get a second-hand guitar for a bit less than, well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh, see, that depends because obviously not everybody's VAT registered. I am. So when I look at a price, I look at it less VAT. So to normal people that walk into a shop, it's $2,000. It's not $2,000 to me. So
I suppose,
buying new is good for that reason from my perspective.
Yeah.
But it's the same with fuel prices, isn't it? I get the VAT back. Everyone else pays full fuel. That's just
so. What you're saying is
the system isn't it?
If there's any listeners out there that are looking to buy a new guitar, just drop Phil Walker an email, and he'll charge a small commission, but he will make you a saving.
And I'll also go to prison for money laundering.
All he needs is a small donation to Phil Walker at PayPal.com.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Or just some Aldi port, and he'll do it for you. That's fine.
I'm glad you said ports. I thought you were going to say something else there. And I was going, where's he going with this?
Yeah, normally you could pick up like previous models, like early Gibson models that you would think would be a little bit cheaper, but obviously this guy had his Les Paul up for 1,600, and as I was thinking about this, the theme for this podcast, I was thinking about my Highway 1 Strat, which I bought off Toby. I think it might have been like $350 I paid for it, which is like dirt cheap. But now, like you can't even pick them up for under $1,000 now. These Highway 1 models, the early ones.
No.
And just some particular models of certain brands are really flying through the roof right now, and it's. But I suppose if you're in the pre-owned market, I suppose there is then an element that you're you know what you're looking for. I suppose you're relatively educated on the guitars you're looking at.
Are you talking to me?
Anyone, I suppose. And if you go into a music shop, you're going you're going to have advice from the salespersons at the shop. Yeah. From people like Lee, you're going to educate people on, like they're going to tell you what they're looking for, and you're probably going to be able to get really close to what they want, rather than having to do the research.
Or they might try and sell
themselves.
you something that you don't want.
Like a PRS with a broken headstock.
or a 2-rock amp.
But no, there's this whole yeah.
Get more knobs, it's better.
There's this whole thing as well that obviously, for instance, if you look at the current model and you don't like it, you might think you might have a year that you really like, and then it comes back to this idea that sometimes like the older stuff is better. And I know last week we looked at we talked a bit about vintage guitars, and when we were doing the whole relic thing, it doesn't even need to be vintage to sometimes have that kind of kudos, like particularly amongst Gibsons. I'm sure we're all aware of this kind of thing, that the early 90s they were great, or the early 2000s they were great. All these different periods, for some reason, and with certain groups of people, seem to have a kind of a mystique about them, and a reason. I would hear it every day in the shop. I'd never buy one of those new ones because I'm really holding out for a 2011. That was a great year. And I don't know whether it was more myth and just kind of like internet legends than it actually was fact, because that 2019 that you've got there, Chris, is proof that modern guitars can be great.
Yeah.
So maybe that plays into it as well. I think people like to buy into that, whether it's true or not. People like to just feel like, oh yeah, I managed to bag a 2007. They're the best rosewood ones that year, and then they kind of walk away with that feeling.
I think people convince themselves that certain models are better because obviously they hear about it in a magazine or they see their, like you say, they see their favorite guitar player playing one on YouTube or something, and they're like, yeah, that's the model I want.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I remember I was 11 years old, and when I found my white Strat, it was in a music shop in Bingley in West Yorkshire called JSG, and I think they were closing down, so they were selling everything off really cheap. And there was my white Strat there, and it was one of the first sort of reissue models that just started doing them, the Japanese ones, and they had 3 on the wall, and something drew me to this one. It just felt better. I don't know. At 11 years old, did I know enough? I don't know. But there was something about that one that I chose that was just better than the others that are there. And since I've seen, in fact, there's one on eBay for sale right now, the exact same model. But I saw one a year ago, sorry. And the serial number was 10 away from mine.
Oh, wow.
Which I was so tempted to buy it, but then I remembered thinking, well, if I bought it, I'd only buy it to put next to it. I probably wouldn't play it. So what's the point?
Yeah,
I'll still go to that one because for some reason, I don't know, the wood was sawn correct, or the neck, the right neck was put with the right body. Or it just you don't know what it is. It just for some reason works. So in like 2015, when Gibson was drunk, when I got my SG, that as a rule, there weren't great guitars. They had silly ideas. They had silly brass nuts on there, the stupid robotic tuners, but I bet there's a few out there that just feel absolutely $1 million. Even with all that gunk on there, there'll be something about certain guitars that will just feel that way. In what supposedly is a crap year for a manufacturer.
So what you're kind of alluding to there is this idea that on the one hand you've got the spec of the instrument, so what the manufacturer intends it to be, and you can kind of browse that online and go, is that for me or is it not? But then you've got this X factor thing, which we taught, the magic touch, whatever you want to call it, the vibe,
you've got to
the
whittle
mojo.
it down then, haven't you?
Yeah. So you can find a guitar that on paper matches your needs and exactly what you want.
Exactly.
But then you play it, and for whatever reason, you don't gel with it. And I would always encourage people to try things that were close to what they were after, but maybe not what they had in mind. Because the amount of times someone would come into the shop and I'm come to look at this PRS or this SG or whatever it is, and cool, but can I just check out a couple of others as well, just for comparison? And they'd actually play something that they didn't even know about. They hadn't read the spec, so they were just
like a flute.
No. They just played something, and so they weren't bogged down in the specs and the details. It needs to have a 12-inch radius. It needs to have jumbo frets. They just went, oh, that looks cool. Yeah, I'll play that. And they went, whoa, what is that? Maybe that is a podcast for another day, or certainly a rant for another day. But getting too bogged down in specs, I would have people talk to me all the time saying, can you help me find a guitar? I need to have a 7 1/4-inch radius. I said, okay, do you? Yeah, I have to, because such and such plays those guitars, and that's just what I've been told. Okay, cool. Comes into the shop, hand them a guitar with a 9 1/2-inch radius, don't tell them, they absolutely love it. It's like, oh, by the way, that's not a 7 1/4-inch radius. What? I don't like it now. And it's like, I think sometimes shopping with your eyes is,
Absolutely. People convince themselves they want something they really don't. And when I bought my telly, I bought it off a guy in Exeter, and the only reason I wanted a Highway 1 telly was just because of the nitro finish on it. I really liked it, and it was kind of slightly worn in. It was 2002, so it's a fair few years old. It's really worn in, but there was something about it. I didn't know the spec on it. I didn't know what pickups it had, what the neck radius was, or anything. And I was just like, this guitar's great. It's the finish I want. That was pretty much the aesthetics I was going for more than anything. And I got it home and I did some research, and it turned out to be a 12-inch radius on the neck. So I was just like, man, this is so comfortable. And you don't often get tellies with a 12-inch radius, actually.
No.
But yeah, it was funny. I just went with it because of the aesthetics, and yeah, it turns out to be actually one of my favorite guitar at the moment.
I don't bother looking at numbers and things like that. I couldn't care less, and I couldn't tell you what the 12, 7, 6 or 7/8 is. Honestly, if you say, oh, what radius is your Strat or this or that, I haven't a clue. I have no idea. I purely go with what sits in my hands. I'm not interested in numbers.
No, and you're a good example of I think maybe a good way to shop. Just play the guitar.
Well, you sold me enough for absolutely, Christ.
You're on our golden list. Well, but actually, I should correct my example that I gave, because more typically, it was someone saying on the radius thing that they wouldn't want a 7 1/4 because they've heard that they're unplayable, and it was actually very often. No disrespect to anyone, but it was actually very often guitar players that were maybe only 6 months or a year into their playing. And I was thinking, it's not the radius that's holding you back. Like, you've just started playing guitar. You're not going to be Steve Vai at the moment. Yeah. But I've read online that the 7 1/4 radius, it chokes out. You can't bend on it and all this sort of stuff. And I think it's arisen out of the culture of online information and the fact that now everybody who's going to buy a guitar, whether it be pre-owned or new, we are all totally juiced up on fact, fiction, online information that we've read, opinions, and we feel like we know every single thing about that guitar before we ever get it in our hands. Whereas I think back in the day, pre-internet and beyond, it would have been a case of, I need to buy a guitar. Here's a nice guitar. Yeah. I'm going to play it. It feels great. It sounds good. I shall buy it. Yeah. I think sometimes our own opinions and our own judgments actually maybe get in the way of us finding the right instrument sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't looking at numbers when I bought this Les Paul. I can't even tell you what pickups it has, to be honest. I know it's based off a 50s model, but I don't even know what the next spec is on this or anything. I know it's a 12-inch radius because most Les Pauls are, but other than that, I don't even know what the neck profile is on this or anything. I just played it in the shop, and I've tried so many Les Pauls. I was been on the hunt for years for one. I just never really found one I liked. And within 5 minutes of playing this, I was like, it smells awesome.
Coming back to last week.
Yeah, I've lost that with this one. My traditional smelled really awesome, but this one, because it's been sat in somebody's smoky flat since 2008, don't quite have the same nitro smell that yours does.
No, but I think you often get like with your Strat, even at 11, Phil, like you just get an immediate connection, don't you? And
you don't know what it is, but yeah, you're right, you do.
I don't even know what it is with this. I just love it. I know. There's the thing about the nuts not being made very well on this, but I have no issues with it. But I'm telling myself, I need to replace the nut because Gibson's nuts are terrible. I can see it's a little sharp around the edges. I mean, it's not, the attention to detail isn't that great compared to, say, like a PRS or even the nut on my Strat. But like I've convinced myself that I need to change this maybe for a bone nut or something. But
maybe it just needs dressing a little bit.
I don't need to. It plays absolutely fine. There is no choking. It's set up great. Peach Guitars did a setup on it for me. It plays absolutely great. But it's one of those things. You
don't fix it.
No, exactly. You go online and you read things like, "Oh, their nuts are terrible" and stuff. But there isn't one thing bad about this guitar. When I look at it, it's awesome.
I think what you need to do, Chris, is just play the guitar. It's brand new, and stop worrying about your nuts. Honestly,
I need to.
All Gibson's nuts for that.
Yeah, the more the guitar plays, the more it's going to play in. I think that made sense. But the more you play it, it's going to play in, and it'll get there. I mean, the nut on this, I'm a traditional, to be honest, and that was bought brand new. The nut on this is perfect. A lot of people go, "Oh, Les Pauls don't stay in tune." Mine does.
Exactly. I haven't had any tuning issues with this thing. It's great.
No, me neither.
It's usually that.
So leave your nuts alone, Chris.
The G string, yeah. G strings and nuts, they're a nightmare, aren't they?
I was going to say, coming back to last week, and we were discussing my bass, my recent purchase. That's a good example that kind of highlights this trap that I think guitar players fall into. So when I bought that bass, it's not a cheap instrument, but I felt very kind of just relaxed, and it was. You were asking me, Chris, like, what did you check out in the store? What did you play? What were you looking for? And to be honest, there wasn't too much thought, or there certainly wasn't too much like overthinking. And I think that's because I've obviously played guitar a lot longer than I've played bass. So and some of the opinions and some of those pitfalls that I might fall into as a guitar player, I'm kind of free from in the bass world, and there's something quite nice about that. So I knew I just wanted a Fender Jazz bass. I knew I wanted a 5-string, and really beyond that, it was quite an easy, like, pick it up, feels great, sounds great, job done, Whereas had that been a guitar of that price, I probably would have been a bit more, has it got this? Has it got that? I need to go away, And I probably would have
Yeah.
deliberated a lot more over it because there's just so many more opinions.
Be honestly, you've been deliberating for the last 2-3 years over a place. I mean,
all right, let's move on.
But nowadays there's so much choice. There's the choice paralysis. It's such a big thing. There's so much, such a huge array of models nowadays. Like if you're after a Strat, there is so many people making Strat style guitars, T style guitars, Tele style guitars, and even Les Paul style guitars. And it's like, where do you start if you're uneducated? I think obviously that's where going brand new is probably the best option, because shops can help you with that, can't they? And this is, I suppose, where your budget comes into play, what you want to use the guitar for. If it's just for bedroom use, obviously you don't want to go for anything too expensive, I suppose. But then again, if you're out on long tours and you're leaving, equipment in a vehicle or something overnight, you're probably not going to want to have anything too expensive in that case either.
I don't know, actually, because from a different point of view, you're probably thinking of stolen or anything like that. But I would say, if you're going out on a tour, it's a bit of consumer advice for everybody. If you're going out on tour, get the best that you can possibly afford, because it will last longer. It's all right, saying, "Oh no, I'm only going to take a 200-300 pound guitar out on tour." Well, if you gig it like what we do, it'll probably last you about 3 weeks and fall apart. So
but it was actually
don't have to adapt well to temperature.
I beg to differ, Philip Walker.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say.
Are we talking about a certain blue item that you've got?
Let's move on.
Yes, let's. You're listening to the Guitar Heroes podcast.
Well, look, I'm desperate to play my new jingle again for everybody, and I know you guys are desperate to get a little bit of education. Seeing as we're talking about, we've basically drifted into talking about Les Pauls. I felt it seemed fitting to maybe give a little lesson on the good old Lester Paulus.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll tell you what.
I can't cue my own music.
I'm not going to do it as well as you, Lee, but I'm going to go, cue the music.
What will we learn today in Lessons with Lee?
Tyler, pay attention. Right, Chris, give me some Les Paul to start this lesson. Let's hear it.
Oh, my little switch
Oh, it's broken.
swiveled round.
Good job, it's under guarantee.
Another good reason to buy a guitar new, because it comes with a warranty, so you can take it back and get it fixed when it doesn't work. So I'm going to try and make this lesson a little bit interactive. I'm going to ask you guys some questions instead of just waffling at you. I'll start with the first.
This is like an exam or something, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. It's a lesson, but in a more conversational format.
Okay.
Most iconic guitar of all time, would you say? Is that the silhouette of the Les Paul? Is that the most iconic, or would you say Strat?
I'm going to say Les Paul, I think. I don't know. There's something about it.
I'm going to sit completely on the fence. Don't know. Some people say Strat, some Les Paul.
All right.
And
Well,
some
we'll
say Telly.
we'll give a B+ or an A- to Chris Taylor for that first question, and Walker, you get a B- for that one.
Why do I get a B-?
Must try harder.
I'm going to see the headmistress and tell her on you.
Okay, so
Is it the Les Esquire?
the what?
No. I'm making a model up.
Not talking
Introduced-
class.
Right, calm down.
Sorry, I'll go sit in the corner.
Trying to give a lesson here. Did you
Chris,
not
put
hear-
your pants back on.
It's all gone to pot.
Oh, dear.
Right, both of you.
Sorry,
see me
sir.
after.
Carry on, sir.
See me after. So,
yes, please.
the Les. I find it weird saying Les Paul. I've had a few Americans comment on videos and stuff because they say Les Paul. So when we say Les, and I have to admit, I have to give it to the Americans. I think their way kind of makes sense because it's short for Lester, so it should be less, like less. Like less is more.
The English language
But
is
we
so
say
messed
Les,
up, though, isn't it?
Les Paul. Anyway, right. Introduced in 1952 as the Gold Top, but that is not where its history starts. Who can tell me where it began? Where did the story of the Les Paul start?
Are we talking about Les Paul's log?
Well, right, Walker, you've redeemed yourself. We are talking about Les Paul and his log. So
that's disgusting.
Have you seen it? Have you seen the picture of the log, Chris?
I have, yes.
So in the 1940s, Les Paul, who was an innovative jazz guitar player, famous for not only his musical career but also for things like multi-track recording and helping inventing pickups and all this sort of stuff. He came to Gibson with the idea for a solid body guitar. It is literally like a railway sleeper with a pickup mounted in it, and then he'd put hollow wings on it because we were used to playing acoustic guitars and we needed something to rest against. But Gibson said, Les, we don't want that. They shot him down, they turned him away, and it wasn't until Mr. Leo Fender launched with his broadcaster, nocaster, telecaster that Gibson suddenly went, hang on, we've missed a trick here. We need to get involved with this. This is going to take off. So they got back in touch with old Les and they got him on board. They said, let's work together. This will work well because not only are you an innovative kind of engineer type player, but you're also a name. So interestingly, the Les Paul is kind of the first signature guitar. We don't often think of it like that, but it is the original concept of having an artist associated with a guitar to help shift more units. Do you know why it was gold? 1952.
I do, but I've forgotten. I'll tell you why I know that, because I've actually got the DVD. It's called The Chasing Sound, and it's a documentary on Les Paul. It's about 3 hours long. I'll lend you it. It's brilliant. I've forgotten.
It's really simple. It's a really simple answer. It almost sounds like a trick question. It's simply because they wanted it to look expensive. So Fender were going down the whole futuristic spaceship car, chrome colours, all this sort of stuff route. Gibson said, no, we're going to go down the classy, expensive furniture type route. They said it's just got to look expensive because we need to compete here. So Les said, well, let's make it gold. Nothing's more expensive than gold. Let's do that. In 1954, so 2 years later, they introduced the custom model as an upcharge. So this was all black with gold hardware, but was still using the single coil P90 pickups at this point. Do you know what the main construction difference in a Les Paul Custom is?
They've double binding rather than single binding.
Yep.
It's got binding on the headstock, and it's got
something bigger. Something bigger
is it,
than that.
Something bigger, is it?
Is the neck joint different?
No, there's a reason. I'll give you a clue. There's a reason it's painted gloss black all over.
Go on.
All mahogany, no maple cap. So a Les
Ah.
Paul, so the typical construction was they used mahogany for the solid back of the guitar, and then the thin maple cap, which gives it the carve, was applied on top.
Explains the weight.
Yeah, a Les Paul Custom was all mahogany, no maple, so it has a slightly different sound, and an ebony board, and it was introduced as a more expensive kind of premium option. But now this is where the story falls off the tracks a bit, and I don't think enough people realise this. The guitar was not a hit. It was not successful. It was deemed heavy, old-fashioned, and they struggled with it compared to Fender, who were taking off like nobody's business. You had Buddy Holly and all these people. The Les Paul didn't catch on. So 1957, end of 1957. They said we need to have one last crack at making this work, and that is when they introduced the Sunburst. They said we've had popularity with Sunburst finishes on our acoustic guitars. Let's just give it one last crack and let's see what we can do. And in 1958 they introduced the Burst, and it was only around for 3 years: 1958, 1959, and 1960. They're the three classic years that we refer to as the bursts, the golden era of the Les Paul. Do you know how many original Les Paul Sunburst guitars were made?
All in all, is it something like 1,600 or something?
Very, very close. Yes. So this was also the first time we saw the word standard used, because they had the gold top, they had the custom, and they slot the Sunburst standard right in the middle of it. And in those 3 years, they only made 1,712. The exact number is 1,712, and that was it.
Bill, you're doing great in today's lesson.
Oh, well, teacher's pet.
Be careful, man. You might get bullied after school.
Yeah, bring it on, big boy.
So also another interesting thing to note was in 1957, that was the first time that we saw the PAF humbucker introduced. That was another thing that they thought might bring them some success. Seth Lover introduced the humbucking pickup, and it took them away from the P90 single coils, and they thought, we're onto a winner here. Sunburst finish, show a bit of this lovely wood, humbucking pickups. That's future. The kids are going to love it. But unfortunately, wasn't to be.
Didn't see
3
it again
years.
until when was it, 69 or something?
You have well and truly redeemed yourself. You can go home on time tonight, Phil. Chris, you've got to stay behind.
And take your trousers down.
So,
oh, no, put them on. Sorry, put them on.
so yeah, you're right. In late 1960, it was discontinued, and Les's name was moved over to what eventually we now know as the SG. But between 1960 and 1968, that became the Les Paul signature model guitar. And the Les Paul, as we know it, was discontinued. It was gone, completely gone. Something that was around for just a few years, and very well may never have been seen again.
In fact, the SG, some of the SGs that said Les Paul on there, they're really quite rare now. And he actually didn't want that. He said no. He said, I don't want my name associated with that.
True. That's part of the reason why eventually it came back. He went back, I think, pretty quickly. He went back to playing his old 50s guitars, and Gibson tried to move the Les Paul model, and it just didn't work. So they took his name off and just called it SG, which just stood for solid guitar. I think they were just so desperately trying to say, look, we've made a solid guitar that's slimmer, lighter, looks a little bit more modern, and just desperately trying to compete with Fender. But yeah, it wasn't until 1968 when the Les Paul as we know it came back.
Well,
arguably because of us. I've said this before and I've got in trouble for it, but I'll say it again. Arguably, the Brits.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Yeah. Well, that was a great lesson there, Lee. I'll tell you what. Have we all learned something? I mean, I knew a lot of that anyway. Chris, how do you feel?
I've learned loads today, sir.
Yeah.
No, I'm not taking a piss. No, honestly, that was a lot that I didn't even know. So that's really, really interesting. And,
okay, well, a bonus question then, because Walker said he knew most of that anyway. So 58, 59 and 60, these are that's the 3 years of the Sunburst Les Paul, the guitars
Holy
that
Grails,
these days,
apparently.
they fetch ridiculous amounts of money. Can you tell me the main differences, maybe just one difference between each of those guitars that divides them, and why people might prefer one year or another?
Oh, yes, I can, but I can't remember. Was it? Oh, I think I'm just.
Obviously, you've already mentioned it, Lee. Obviously, pickups are different between them.
Nope, not 58, not the standard. Once it became the Sunburst standard.
Neck.
Yes.
It was the neck.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
neck profile.
What would you experience between roughly?
The 60s is a slimmer neck.
Correct.
The 59 was a chunky monkey. And the 58, I'll refer to your notes.
It actually starts the thickest and gets slimmer. So the 58 is the baseball bat. The 59 was just a little bit off that, and then the 60 was really quite slim, which I think is probably it's a bit of an unknown quantity really as to why the 59 is the most expensive. But I think it's generally thought that was the year that the spec came together. You had the combination of a fairly large neck with large frets, because in 58 they had a really big neck but tiny frets. 59 made the neck slightly smaller, big frets. Also, the other big thing, in 58 they didn't use flamed maple, they used plain maple. So if you look at a 58, it's a sunburst finish, but it's just got a plain grain to it. 59 was when they introduced that lovely flaming that you see. So I think that's why the 59 is kind of slap bang in the middle, and they just about got that spec sheet bang on.
It's funny, isn't it? Because Mark Knopfler, who money's not really an object when it comes to buying guitars, he's well known, and he's had a lot of he's had a reproduction made of his 58. He prefers the 58, doesn't he?
Well, I've never played a real one. I've only ever played the reissues. But if I had the money, I'd probably buy a 58 as well.
Mm.
I really like that neck. It is big.
I do like a big neck, definitely. Yeah.
Again, it's all personal preference, isn't it? I think. I don't even know what year this is based off.
I think that's the 50s, and I think that's just.
But that's the thing. It's so broad, isn't it? They haven't given it a specific year. It isn't like the custom shops where they go, "This is a 58 reissue," like the R8s and the R9s. Whereas this is just 50s. So I guess, are they taking the best bits of those 3 years? Do you think?
I think so. I think it's probably, if you buy a modern 50s Gibson neck, I think it's probably closest to the 59. I don't think it's as big as a 58. And it's definitely bigger than a 60. So I reckon it's probably closest to the 59.
Yeah,
maybe. But the other thing to remember, just like Fender at the time as well, is they were handmade instruments. So these are only kind of like rough guidelines. That's the beauty of those old guitars. They were hand finished. And if somebody decided to take a little bit of extra wood off the fretboard or off the neck, you were going to get a completely different guitar. So there's always going to be anomalies, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that was great, Lee. Really enjoyed it.
Well,
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I've got a rant. Does anybody want to cue my music?
Yeah.
Chris, you do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? It's time to cue the music.
Phil's rant. Okay, are you ready?
I thought we were watching Gladiators then.
What is it?
My first whistle.
What is it? Yeah. Contender, are you ready? Jockstrap, are you ready? Or whatever they called each other. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I've got a rant. I'm a bit annoyed with myself. Okay, I'm annoyed with myself a little bit because I've always got this motto of buy cheap, buy twice. All right, I live and die by that motto. And what have I done this week? I've bought cheap. I've bought cheap, hoping that something would work, and yes, it does work, but I can't get on with it. I've gone and bought a D tuner for my Les Paul because I need to tune really quickly in the show from my low E to a D, and I was going to get the hip shot one, the Grover hip shot. They're hard to get hold of at the moment because apparently Brexit stops everything. It even stops pot noodles from coming in the country. I don't know, bloody rubbish. But anyway. And the good thing with getting the Grover one is I can take off the Grover peg head, the button, and put back on my chrome tulip. So you looking at the guitar head on, you won't really notice anything apart from a little arm sticking up at the side of it. Great. But they're, like I said, they're about £100, and I saw this other thing called the pitch key. Now, this is a device that fits onto the string behind the nut, and it's a tricky little bugger to get on there. But once it's on there, it sort of protrudes by, I'd say, 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inch. And I don't think it's going to go in a case. I mean, most of my guitars when we're on the road go in a vault, so it won't really affect that. But I do like to, if I do the other gigs with other people, I'll just bung them in a case and take it. I don't think it's going to fit in there because it sticks out too much. And it's too much of a pain in the arse to take on and off all the time. But, it works well. I mean... And then if I just drop it, it goes... So... It works really well. I'm just annoyed with myself because it's not really what I wanted. But just let me say, this pitch key, it costs £20. Okay, £19.95.
20 quid.
And yeah, 20 quid, how much? And for what it does...
You do realise you have a tuner on there, you can just do this.
You've obviously never worked in the guitar show, Chris, because when you won't get a chance to do that.
I know. I know.
I'm going to hold him to that. So you do realise you can do it. And when Chris goes, I haven't got time to do this, I go, oh, Chris, just do it like this. But, so yeah, it's like, it's really good for 20 quid. It is, and anybody that's not too bothered about it sticking out, and there's a little bit of rattle on the strings as well with it, which, yeah, I don't know if you can just kind of make out a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't know if you'd hear that on stage, to be honest, but I can hear it when I'm playing it unplugged in the house. So yeah, that's a little rant. Is like, don't buy cheap, buy twice. Just although it is a good, it is good for 20 quid. It's bloody marvelous. It really is.
Yeah.
But it's not what I wanted really, and I shouldn't have bought it. And that's just my little rant. I'm a bit annoyed with myself.
So you spent 20 quid on an intrinsic piece of equipment that is gonna maintain the tuning of your guitar, but you spent 40 quid on a bit of plastic to go on the guitar.
No, I did. I didn't, because let me tell you what happened about that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, everybody knows that I'm quite finicky about this. Lee's going to eat his socks in a minute for saying that.
Go on.
Okay, so I got this Les Paul, and for whatever reason, the guy who had it before me decided to change all the plastic on there. I don't know why. But he'd left in the case the pickup surrounds and the poker chip for the round selector switch, but he'd lost the scratch plate, so it still had a cheap, crappy Chinese scratch plate on there. It looked awful. Couldn't find one for love nor money anywhere on eBay, at usual places, and after scouring the internet, I found a music shop had it. It was 24 quid. I thought, I can live with that. That's fine. I can live with that. And then I went to order it and everything, and it said it's coming from Germany. It's going to cost 15 quid. I'm like, what? Oh, you're joking. So I thought, and I didn't get it. And then after loads of deliberating, I was like, stuff it. I can't bear to look at this thing any longer. So I just went, stuff it. And I ordered it. Supposed to come last week. It never turned up when it was supposed to do by a company. I'm not gonna say who they are, but the initials are UPS. Okay. So it never came, and then after I waited in, I don't know, to the time that it said, I then got a text saying it's going to be delivered on Friday between 8:15 and 2. I was like, oh, right, okay, fair enough. And it said it was due to Brexit. Right, okay.
What?
Yeah, okay. My yogurt went off in the fridge the other day. I think that was Brexit's fault as well.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I was okay. So waited in, never turned up. Hour after it was supposed to turn up, I got another thing saying no, it's going to be next. I said, oh, for God's sake! So I phoned I emailed the music shop, and told them what had happened, and they said we're really, really sorry about this. We'll refund you the postage.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so they refunded the postage, and then they sent me an email probably a few hours later saying that, yeah, it's going to be delivered on Tuesday at this time. And I got the refund, and it arrived on Monday. So, it was early, but they still got it wrong. Luckily, I was in.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I haven't got anywhere to go right now. But, I actually I got it for the 24 quid. That it originally was,
and
so
it was,
and
it was the right part, because that was one of the worries as well, that it might have turned up and been, because the original one was almost there. It was just slightly the wrong shade of cream, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's important. You've got to get your cream right. Yeah, no, it's superb. It fits perfect. It's marvelous, and I'm very, very happy now. And that's good. Lee, do the socials. I'm so happy. Let's end on a happy one.
Well, there we go. You've well and truly made me want a Les Paul now. So yeah.
Keep looking on eBay for you, Lee. I love spending other people's money. It's great.
Just bought a bass.
I don't know about you, Phil. Every time I pick up the Les Paul, I just want to play Thin Lizzy on this thing. Don't know about you. Yeah, just like I was playing earlier today. Was it? Tell me if you can name the riff.
Cold Sweat.
Yeah, but it's the best bit, is the.
So good. Love that tune.
It's John Sykes, isn't it? He's the one who does all the pinch harmonics, and you get it with when he was in Whitesnake as well. Just
did he play on Cold Sweat?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
You know why you want a Les Paul, Lee? That's why you want a Les Paul.
For
this.
Stop it now.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Stop taunting me with Les Paul riffs. No.
Hang on a minute. Hang on, Lee. Just let me use my G tuner.
Here we go.
Oh, sorry. Right, socials. Sorry.
Are you quite finished?
I'm done.
Actually, before we jump to socials, I was just going to mention we haven't had a Chris's Corner for ages. I'll save it for another time. But the HX Stomp, they've got the new XL out, right? And this, right? And I gotta say that the Stomp is $399, a little bit cheaper than what I paid for it. But for an extra 5 switches and a few tiny extra little bits, you can spend an extra £200 and get the XL model, which is double the size. And for me, it just seems so impractical. Like the Stomp, you can like put in your guitar case as like a backup device, and but the new XL doesn't have any more DSP. And like,
you know what I would say though with that, Chris, is I would say use it and see how useful those switches are, because I was exactly the same frame of mind with you. And
I haven't
obviously
spent any time much time thinking about it, but just initially, I'm just like, I don't know.
Well,
it's
I mean,
200
yeah,
quid.
I know what you're saying, and exactly what you're saying. But if you think about, I mean, I've used my Stomp so many times live, so have you. And I ended up buying what do you call it? A little up and down switch, a two-way switch. That plugs into the foot switch on the back of it. So I can now have it in snapshot mode or pedal mode, and then I could go up and down patches, which has made life so much easier. But that means I can't have a volume wah pedal on there. So yeah, there's all sorts of things like that which are annoying. Whereas with this new one, all that is out of the equation. You know, you don't have to worry about that because you can do it all on the board now. You know, and it's got two separate pedal inputs as well, which. You know, if you think about it, you could actually do the guitar show with that.
But the issue is there, Phil, is like you can go and get the Pod Go, which is about 400 quid, and it's got all the pedals. I know it hasn't got the DSP power, but it has obviously a bit more practicality than the Stomp, and you know, and it's in terms of functionality and stuff.
Don't they make a Helix LT though? That's like
exactly. It's like
can't be far off the price.
Exactly. So now I think like the Pod Go is almost irrelevant now because this LT is like.
Now I actually, I don't know if you noticed, I was writing something down earlier because there was something I really wanted to say, and I'm so glad, Chris, that you said about this. Something that people have been out, 'cause when I used to work for Line 6, people used to say, why don't they do this? It'd be so much better if they did. And they have actually done it at last. The Pod Go is now wireless. You can now use a wireless system with it. It's built in. You can get the G10 little transmitter bug, and it works with the pedal board. It's got a built-in wireless system. Fantastic! That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on again what you are after.
I'm thinking of black Les Pauls and Pod Go wireless isn't quite doing it.
Here we go, Lee.
Oh man! Oh yes.
The sustain. Listen to the sustain.
That album.
Yeah.
Permission to Land. Oh,
also,
man.
this.
And if you really want to get, you can do anything on one of these. Oh, exactly. Oh.
All right. Enough. Got enough sustain on that.
Too much, mate. Do the socials.
Right. If anybody out there has a lovely Les Paul custom in black or a Les Paul standard in black that they want to offer me at a ridiculous price, please get in touch.
Don't get a traditional; they're too heavy.
You just send it my way. Whatever you've got, let me have a look. Let me have a look. I need to fight back against these Wallies.
Sorry,
right.
sir.
Okay, socials. So yeah, if you want to get in touch, you can head over to Instagram, where you can search Phil Walker Guitar, Chris Anthony Guitar, and Lee Troy Guitar. If you go to Facebook, you can search Phil Walker Guitarist, Lee Williams Guitarist, and Chris Anthony Guitar. You can search Story of Guitar Heroes on Instagram and Facebook, or you can head to the website www.storyofguitarheroes.com, and of course YouTube Phil Walker Guitarist, where you can see videos from behind the scenes.
Sorry, I'm just playing some like music as you do the socials on my Les Paul.
Thanks for listening, guys. I'm out of here.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Something in my throat here. Oh, I've swallowed the cork.